welcome to another episode of Behind the Gate with Scott and Kate. I'm your co-host, Scott Waddell, along with my co-host, Caitlin Wesley, and this is our 39th episode. And we'd like to thank our sponsors again, Patrick Hill and American History, who we're told will be racing in the Kelty Burnett en route to the Gold Cup and Saucer is his plan for this year. So we'll see him in Woodstock at the 1st of August. So we got a really, really special guest tonight. I've been wanting to talk to this girl for a while. Just tell you a little bit about her. She's got over 2,300 training wins in her career, over $63 million in purse money. And this past Saturday night, one of her stable stars, Legendary Hanover, won the fastest ever Meadowlands pace for PEI-born driver James McDonald and Nova Scotia-born trainer Anthony Beaton, so all kinds of maritime connections. So I'll hand it over to my co-host, Caitlin Wesley, and she'll introduce our special guest tonight.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, I'm super excited to introduce our special guest. As you said, she is phenomenal in the industry. She has grown the industry and she's also making a mark in the industry. So I'm super excited as being a female in the industry myself. Trying to dive in more into the training side. So I can't wait to, dive in and chit chat with Casie Coleman. So thanks, Casie, for jumping on board and talking to us small folks down in the Maritimes.
No problem at all. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, no, really glad to have you, Casie. And we'll kind of start things off with how you got started in the racing game. A lot of people certainly know you and know a lot about your career, but some of our listeners may not know how you first got started. I know you started training back, well, you're probably on record anyway, back in 1997, and you got your first training win in 1998. So kind of tell our listeners how you got started way back before you, became so successful.
I was born and raised in harness racing. My dad, Phil Coleman, and my mom, Linda Coleman, they always had a stable. My dad drove and trained, and I just from the time I was born, I literally was born in the barn. I remember my mom telling me when she went into labor, she was at Sandown Park in Victoria, and told my dad her water broke. She's going into labor, and my dad's like, "Well, you got to wait. I've got another last trip to go here, so you have to wait a little bit." And he literally went out to train another trip with a horse, thought she'd be all right, and somebody else rushed her to the hospital. So that's how much I was born in a barn almost, basically, and just it's all I've ever done. Absolutely loved it from the time I was old enough to handle a horse. I was doing anything I could with them right from day one, and it's all I've ever done as a job is work with horses. I've never had any kind of other job at all.
Now, did you first start out in Western Canada?
Yes, born and raised Fraser Downs, Cloverdale Raceway it was called back then. It's now Fraser Downs, and then Sandown Park. We also would go to Alberta and race like Edmonton Northlands Park and Calgary Stampede. And we went to California a little bit on our off seasons and Los Alamitos and Cal Expo. So that was we even did Saskatchewan, actually, Regina, Saskatchewan sometimes, Queensbury Downs, I believe it was called, but raced all over back there, the West Coast.
Wow, that's awesome. So, Southside Pride gave you your first driving win, which I'm sorry, but I had to go to track it, and I was amazed that you drove because I know you as a trainer. So when I had to look this up and I noticed that you drove, I was like flabbergasted because that is amazing. In my eyes, that's awesome. Done both, so you both sides. Can you tell us about like the moment that made you really consider the training side of things?
So when I started, I really wanted to be a driver. That's all I wanted to do. And I was doing actually half decent driving dad's horses, and we had a good go for a little while. And the reason I stopped driving is when I was back, I think I was 19 or 20, I was in a serious barn fire. 22% of my body is burnt from skin grafts. And I was told by the doctors I wouldn't be allowed around horses for a 2 years minimum. It took me a long time just to learn to walk again, let alone be able to be around horses with the infection being a big thing they were worried about with all the open skin grafts and everything. So basically, it wasn't long after in the barn fire. I spent a lot of time in intensive care and going through a lot of surgeries. And once I got back into the barn, I realized I wasn't as strong as I used to be on my right arm and both my legs, and they weren't as strong as they should have been. And that's basically when I ended up stopping driving and turning to a trainer. I just wasn't as strong as I used to be.
Yeah, that's something I didn't know about you. Wow.
Yeah, if you ever Google my name with barn fire, you'll see how I've almost blown up the place. No horses got hurt, and actually, how you ended up saying Southside Pride, that's the
Yeah.
horse I was working on that day. He's my very first win as a driver. He's
Yeah.
the first baby my dad let me do everything on my own with. My dad really didn't like that horse very much, and I said I want to train that horse and do what I want to do with him, and he let me. And I took my time with that horse and made him into a half decent racehorse in the West Coast. And he's the horse I was literally putting him away with a reducing liniment. I was heating up the reducing. He was in the next day to race, and I decided to grab a gallon of alcohol instead of the small bottle, thinking that the fire was about to go out and I need a little more alcohol. And when I poured a little bit of the gallon on it, it shot back up into the gallon, and I basically blew myself up. And I was very, very lucky that I made it through that.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely you are. And you're a walking miracle because you look at the success you've had as a trainer. So that's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, you had mentioned too, Casie, your dad, and being such a big part early on in your career. If you had to pick out maybe one or two other people that had a big impact on you, especially early on in your career.
Yeah, so obviously I learned everything through my dad. Like I worked with him forever, and he taught me pretty much everything I know. Saying that, Billy Davis, who's now passed, he's one of the greatest trainers and drivers I'd ever seen. He was unbelievable horseman, very, very sharp man, and I worked for him for a while, and he taught me a lot. I must say Todd Bilby, I worked for him for a while. He taught me a lot. Worked
Yeah.
for Travis Humphrey. He taught me some. Everybody I work for, everybody, you learn something everywhere you go. So I always tried to learn to keep your eyes and ears open and your mouth shut and just take in what you can. And but yeah, I'm gonna say the biggest influence be Bill Davis, my dad, Todd, guys like that.
Anybody currently that you kind of look up to?
Right now, like I said, it's always like the guys that I like to feel that I taught them a lot of what they know, but guys like Anthony Beaton, who's training for me, and Andrew Harris, who's training for me,
Yep.
they do different things than what I used to. So I see ways they're doing things, and I like it. And like I say, you see all kinds of different things with the way different people do, and I'll try some of the new methods and go with my old methods and see what works best for the horse.
So who was the first horse that really put you on that map and kind of jump started your career?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I got to go with like my first horse ever was a horse named Keeper Flying, and I like if it wasn't for her, she was a first time owner, and I was just for a first time owner claiming her for me. He never owned a horse. I picked Keeper Flying. He asked me to train, and she did very well for us. I was driving and training her. I think we won 5 or 6 in a row with her. She went right up the ladder. And if it wasn't for her, like I just look at it this way: just say I claimed a bad horse, and she didn't do no good. I'm just assuming maybe it was Merlin House that gave me my first chance, and I'm just assuming that maybe he wanted to claim more horses and I would never be thought of. But this horse did very, very well. Once she got claimed off of us, we took that money and bought more horses and just kept reinvesting the money, and just cheap horses. Like she was an 85 claimer, and we just always, I'm going to say the highest claimer we got was probably about 15,000. And Merlin just kept letting me keep reinvest and reinvest. And if it wasn't for Merlin House and Keep Her Flying, I'd be nobody because I actually kept her until about 2 years ago, I think it was now. She did pass, but she was old. Like we knew that it was coming her time. We ended up breeding her. She had a horse named Keeper's Destiny who made just under $1 million for us. She had a horse named Sports Keeper who made about $500,000. So she was a good broodmare also. But yeah, 100% her. If it wasn't for her, I'd be nobody. The first good horses to put me on the map, I claimed Our Lucky Clean. He did unbelievable. I think he made about $1.5 million after claiming him for 40,000. And because of him, Mac Nichols sent me American Ideal. And American Ideal is my first horse that I started venturing the stakes scene a lot, went to the United States with, and really, really put me on the map. So it's kind of a combo of Keeper's Destiny brought Our Lucky Clean brought American Ideal, and away we went.
Cool.
Yeah, when I think of you, Casie, another horse, of course, present day, you've got legendary Hanover and Nijinsky this year, but another horse that stands out to me is McWicked. Tell us the story about how you picked this guy out and what he was able to accomplish in a Hall of Fame career.
Yeah, actually, funny saying that. Like right now, obviously, I'm sending my horses to Anthony Beaton, and I couldn't be more thrilled that he's having the season he's having.
Yeah,
I'm just an owner now. He's in charge for the summer training everybody, but it's actually a lot to do with him, with how I got McWicked. Anthony and his wife Lisa were very good friends with Ed James, SSG Stables, through working for Rod Hennessy and Paul McKenzie because he owned horses there. And we're down here in Florida. We're literally just watching the races at Pompano Park, and Ed was talking to Tony Anthony, and that's how I met Ed. And he said to me, I have this really good 3-year-old colt that we bought. He bought him in the 2 turning 3-year-old sale at Harrisburg. I believe he paid about 200,000 for him with Jim McDonald. Jim McDonald trained him down that season to get him ready for his 3-year-old year. And he said, I'd
yeah,
like you to take him with you and race him this summer. And I literally told Ed no multiple times. I didn't think he was good enough. I thought he was just a sire stake horse. I didn't want another owner. I didn't want more horses. I was trying to get less horses then. I kept telling him no. Thank God I saw his qualifier. He was qualifying in against a horse named Persistent Beauty or something, Precocious Beauty, sorry. Greg McNair's filly, who was Sports Writer's sister. And I paid attention to that qualifier, and I don't know why a colt was in against a filly, but they were. And he won the qualifier. She was second. I was like, man, that horse looked good. And Ed asked me again, would you please take this horse and take him north and race him? And I told him, I'll give you a month. I'll take the horse for 1 month. If he's only a sire stake horse, I'm not keeping him. But if he can go to the Grand Circuit, I'll keep him. And obviously, the rest is history. The horse was an unbelievable, amazing animal.
yeah.
Just unbelievably tough animal. I think he made just over $5 million, and just a creature. Every time he went on the track, you knew he was going to give you all he had, and just unbelievable ride with that horse.
That's awesome. So most of us know you had the Meadowlands Pace this past weekend, which is I watch it and I get goosebumps, kind of like I watch the Gold Cup and Saucer and get the goosebumps because I'm like, how amazing it would be just to be in the moment there. But for you to have two racing, that must have been like a thrill in itself.
Yes, it was awesome. Like, most people know I've had very bad luck in the past in the Meadowlands Pace. I literally haven't paid a horse in it since Better Than Cheddar, which I believe was 2014. I just had bad luck in that race, and I'm superstitious, and I'm like, no more, no more Meadowlands Pace. I'm never gonna get that one. And
Yeah.
this year, I paid both these two boys into it, and to finish first and second, it was unbelievable. Like, I knew we had a very good chance, but to actually accomplish it and get the job done, I got to get all the props to Anthony and his crew and James McDonald and Lewis Waugh, the drives they gave, and all the people behind those horses, because it takes a big team to get a job like that done, and to come out of it 1-2 was pretty unbelievable. Let alone a track record or a stakes record doing it too. It was a unreal night, and it makes a big thrill, no doubt. And like you said, the Gold Cup and Saucer, I've been there a couple times. I've raced in it once and been there with Anthony racing one in it a couple years ago, and that is unbelievable. Like, that's a lot of fun. Like, I raced Luke and Hanover in there. It was the year that it got rained out. We were actually we already post parade, and it rained like something I never seen before, and it actually got rained out. And I was amazed that the next day when we raced, I think it was a 3 o'clock post time, and the place was packed. There was a ton of people there just to watch one race at 3 o'clock on a Sunday, and I'd love to bring another horse one year and be able to win the Gold Cup, because that's quite a lot of fun. You guys do it up right. I know that they treated us first class. You would have thought you were racing for $1 million.
Yeah,
That's
no,
awesome.
definitely. Hopefully you can get back someday, Casey. It'd be nice to have you again. Looking back on your wins in your career, can you pick out three that really stand out to you? I know this one this past Saturday night was certainly special, but if you had to like rank your top three, who would you put there?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think right quick. I've been fortunate to have a lot of very great wins, but
I
I'm gonna
know.
say I'm going to say American Ideal in his world record mile at Lexington, Kentucky. The whole grandstand was just standing and got a standing ovation and screaming and clapping. And that was absolutely amazing. It was my first time racing at the Red Mile, and he goes out and sets a world record in it. So I'm going to say he's right up there. My first Little Brown Jug, Michael's Power, was my first Little Brown Jug, and all the Little Brown Jugs were fantastic. But being the first one with Michael's Power, that was pretty amazing. And I'm going to say my first $1 million race, it was $1.5 million back then, the North American Cup with Sports Writer. And he was one of the early ones that I bought as a baby, broke, raised, did everything. Like we did everything with him from ground zero. And to go out and win the North American Cup for 1.5 million, that was pretty special. So those ones probably ranked pretty close to the top.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about the importance of your staff, Casie. Of course, you're stable manager, owner. Tell us about your operation and just kind of how important your staff is to you.
Very important. Like it's like back in the day when I'd have over 100 horses. You simply like it's a lot of work to take in, and I like to pride myself, and I've always had a great memory, and I could remember all the horses' equipment and exactly their training schedule when they got a race. Like I remembered everything very very well. But saying that, I needed a great team behind me, and Anthony always ran my Canada barn. Andrew Harris always ran my New Jersey barn, and then we had a ton of assistant trainers, grooms, blacksmiths, feed people, hay people, track people, farm managers that were renting stalls out of, shippers. Like there's a lot of people, let alone all the partners and owners that give me the chance to train the horses for them. And right now, how we're doing it, I buy them as babies, break and train them down here with my staff that I have down here that are a fantastic crew. And then they ship north to Anthony, and Andrew has a couple for me right now also. And Tony Dinges has one for me in Lexington, Kentucky. And I just communicate them via text usually and talk to them on the phone a bit here and there. And they, like I say, there's a huge staff behind every one of these horses, and it takes everybody that thinks it's you can do it on your own. You definitely can't. I can't even count how many people in total there are behind each one of these horses, right from buying their feed and renting stalls to training them and getting them to the races and the drivers and everybody involved. It's a team effort.
Excellent.
So you mentioned just a minute ago about that you buy them and you break them. So what's your process of when you go to the sale and you're kind of looking and selecting these yearlings? What is your process within that?
Yeah, actually, Murray Brown just did an interview on me just a couple days ago. He called for an interview and was kind of the same sort of questions that's going to be in the HRU on Sunday, I believe. But basically, like I just said to him, it's hard for me to explain. Like I realize some people have yearling selectors that do this for them, like get it down to the small list, and then they do their final decisions. I could never do that. I have to do it all myself, and I can't explain to somebody how I pick a yearling. Really, it's like I have to see every pacer. I don't care if they're going to be some of my best horses. Idyllic was 13,000. Better Than Cheddar was 30,000. Vegas Vacation was 32,000. Stuff like that. Like I'm not known for buying expensive horses. Legendary Hanover is the second most expensive I've ever bought, and he was 260. After that, it's well below 200 that I pay for horses, which sounds like a lot, but with how high a lot of these horses go for, it really isn't. I've had most of my luck 100 and under, but it's just I'll buy horses small, medium, large, all over the place. They got to have a big ass, they got a big shoulder, sharp head, big eye, big nostril, big throat. I love the ones that have a bit of white on them. Legendary Hanover does not have any white on them, whereas Nijinsky has a lot of white on them. But it's just something that I like for whatever reason. It's a superstitious thing. The way they handle themselves, like they got to have a good attitude. I make the grooms, the caretakers, walk them a lot up and down. I like to turn them out at the farms when I'm at the farms, and I look at them multiple times. By the time I bought one, I've probably seen it almost 10 times, and I'm trying to pick them apart. Like I'm trying to, what will make them not go fast, what will make them not stay sound. Attitudes are a huge thing. I just if I see they're not going, like the guys behind them has to chase them and they're not wanting to walk on their own, I hate that. If they drop their feet like hard, like they land on the ground very heavy, I don't like that. I like a horse that's full of himself, like a horse you can just tell it's something about their eye, the way their presence when you look at them. And the good ones, like there's been, each time I've spotted a good one, I'll put it this way, I'll put Betting Line. I think he's one of the best horses I've ever trained. I remember me and Andrew Harris were going to all the farms looking at horses, and I wasn't seeing anything I liked. And I was going to Fairwinds Farms, which was very close to where we trained at. We were at White Birch Farms at the moment. moment. And I had a morning appointment, and Andrew said, you go. I'm going to stay here. We had a lot of work to do at the barn. And I remember texting Andrew. I saw a betting line. It was as soon as I seen him, just how he handled himself, his eye, the way he went in the field, everything. And I texted Andrew. I said, I just found a freaking freak. This thing's amazing. I got to bring him home. I don't even care what he costs. We ended up getting him for $60,000, and I would have paid anything for the, like, I was taking that horse home. And same with Sports Writer. The time I saw Sports Writer, as soon as I seen them, just their presence, whatever they have in their eye, the way they handle themselves, you just know. Legendary Hanover was the same thing. As soon as I seen them, you got to get this horse. So it doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't happen often, but every once in a while, I just got that feeling on a horse. And so far, I've had good success with buying them once I get that feeling, once I see them out on the floor.
So one of the things, the horses that you've had, Casie, a lot of them have gone on to the stallion ranks. You must be pretty proud when you see a lot of the babies from the race horses that you had. Is there a couple of favorites that you have that you feel really throw some nice horses?
Oh, for sure. Like I've had luck with all my stallions. Really, I've been known to stay and buy my own. I call them homebreds, but they're not homebreds. I don't do any breeding myself. I just sell sell semen basically and buy their babies. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna say like American Ideal. I bought Idyllic his first year standing, and she made just I think about 1.5 million. He was an unbelievable sire. It's sad he passed last season. There he passed, but he really put his stamp on the racing scene. On betting line, like I've got Line Drive Hanover, who is an unbelievable horse. And then because Andrew has the horse, a buck a bet Hanover is a betting line, and I'm very close with Andrew and him being a betting line. I follow that horse pretty closely. I was the underbidder on a buck a bet at the sale. I wish I got him, but Tony Alonge outbid me. I've had very good betting lines, very good American Ideals, had a couple Cheddars. I got a few McWickeds. I'm going to be qualifying here next week. I'm a little bit behind just for different reasons, but they're ready to qualify next Tuesday at Mohawk, and I think a couple of them are pretty nice. Sports Writer, I've had Reverend Hanover comes to hand. He made about 500,000. But I pretty much bought from all of them and had some luck with all of them.
That's awesome. So, of course, this being a maritime-based podcast, we'd be remiss if we didn't ask you about some of the maritimers that you've been involved with. I know Ben Hollingsworth worked for you, Tisha, and of course now Anthony Beaton. What do you think gives maritimers such a great work ethic and everything else? And what do you see that kind of inspires you to have either groom for you or drive for you?
Yeah, I've had great luck with the Maritime Connection. Like I say, they're hard workers. They're very sharp horsemen. They know what they're doing. Besides the names you just mentioned, like Mark and James McDonald from out, like they drive for me a lot. Mark started out driving all my horses until he moved to the States. Had very good luck, and now James is driving a lot of them, having good luck. And guys like Gary Murner, Stephen Howlett, Eddie Melvin. I could go on and on and on, but I've had all kinds of maritimers work for me, and just I can't think of having a bad maritimer that worked for me. Like every one of them, they know what they're doing, they know their stuff. Very very sharp horsemen, and like obviously you guys don't race for so much money out there like we do in Toronto. And it doesn't matter. Like it's just I remember going to the backstretch there when I came for Old Home Week a few times, and I came for the O'Brien Awards before. You guys had me out to guest speak at a banquet once, and just it's unbelievable how much your guys' horses look like $1,000,000, and your stables are clean, and everybody takes pride in what they do, and it's everybody out there does a fantastic job. I wish you all had more money to race for out there, but there's a lot of sharp horsemen out there.
Yeah, no, for sure. Is there any young drivers on the scene up in Ontario that you've kind of really look at and see that they've got a bright future?
Yeah, one I'll put last season. The first time I sent Anthony horses, all my babies, was last summer. So when they're all baby qualifying, I was sitting out here watching them on the big TV qualify, and we weren't using them at the time. But a guy named Tyler Borth, I'm not even sure how old he is. I'm gonna estimate he's like early 20s.
Yeah.
But I remember saying to Anthony, I said, if you ever need him, this Tyler Borth, I really like the way he handles a horse. And I was just watching him in other races with babies. And came up that James was out of town to drive Tony's horse named Redwood Hanover, and we needed a driver on Elode Hanover. And Anthony ended up going with Tyler Borth, and I believe that's the first time we used him. And that was his biggest win to that date was $75,000. It was called I'm trying to remember the name of the race. Can't remember the name of the race right now.
Yeah.
But she ended up winning, and he made a very bold, smart move to the front. Like, she wasn't a favorite, and he made a real bold move to the front, and it was the winning move. And since then, he drove some other horses for us also, and he's got a big future. That kid, he drives a horse really well. So that's one that comes to mind offhand, and one that I've never used before, but watch him race in the States is a kid named Brett Beckwith. I think he's 22, 23, and every time I open up Standardbred Canada or USDA, 1.5, 1.6, 1.8, I think the other day. Like, he's doing an unbelievable job. So I think you'll hear big things from that kid.
Yeah, we had him on our podcast actually, probably early on. And, that kid is mature beyond his years, not just driving, but, off the racetrack. He's got a great work ethic, and he goes to the gym every day and, works on himself. So I think you're right. I think he's going to be one to watch for many years.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, listen, thanks very much for joining us, Casie. I know that you've got a busy schedule, and we appreciate you taking the time out to join us tonight.
No problem. I appreciate it.
All right. And that was our special guest tonight, our 39th episode of Behind the Gate with Scott and Kate. Again, a big thank you to our sponsor, American History, and his owner, Patrick Hill, who will be racing in the Gold Cup and Saucer. He's pointed that way anyway. So we'll see him in Woodstock, New Brunswick, as well as a tune-up. So again, thank you to our special guest, Casie Coleman. And this has been another edition on behalf of myself, Scott Waddell, and my co-host, Caitlin Wesley. We'll see you next time on Behind the Gate with Scott and Kate.